You're not normally going to hear me throw around phrases like secret sauce, mainly because I just don't like the sound of that phrase. But I'm going to make an exception today because I was working on this track and found some kind of unconventional uses for Silver Spring or like a spring reverb in general that I think are really interesting. And when people think of spring reverb, I think they immediately think of guitar. So I have this track going and I just kind of wanted to highlight some things that I have found. So let's jump on in. If you've been watching our channel for a while, you may know that I am a very, very big fan of the remake of Suspiria. And I love the soundtrack that Thom Yorke did. And I'm working on this track that could fit right at home in that movie. And it's pretty straightforward. I'm using postcard piano, which was our very first instrument that we ever made at Teletone. I am using a synth that I am not at liberty to talk about just yet. And then electro, which is our electronic drum instrument. And I'm using the 808 kit for this song. And it's not very long, so I'm just going to play it. I think it's like a minute and a half. Okay, so I want to highlight a few things here. So the first place I want to go is back to that piano. This is, once again, postcard piano. I was trying to think about why I like the sound of a spring reverb so much on this piano. And I think it has to do with the fact that it almost sounds like little whispers happening or something. It makes it kind of eerie. I'm using the EP250 with the mod delay, and then I've reduced the decay and then turned up the drive a bit. And then I've adjusted the high pass to make sure that not too much of that low end is getting like muddied up with the reverb. There's something that just sounds a little bit more eerie about this than using a room or a normal hall reverb. Let me go to another example. The synth bass really, it adds a bit of extra growl. When I'm using the mod wheel to open up this filter, it looks like I'm using the Great British Hawk reverb selection. That's where we took the Great British Spring and then daisy chained it to the Hawk reverb. It had a really cool result. And listen to how this kind of makes for an almost like analog mechanical sound. And then I'm going to jump to the ending. As you can see, I had, there's two MIDI events here that I probably had from different tracks. When I overlaid them on top of each other, it almost sounds like when you take a 1/4-inch cable and you're plugging it into your guitar amp, there's kind of this like sputtering electrical sound that has a really cool effect when you put this spring reverb on top of it. Let's listen to that again with the reverb off. It just adds that nice growl to it. To kind of drive home the point that I was mentioning earlier about the little whispery sounds, another one of these synth tracks that I made has a lot of really heavy modulation happening in the higher end of the keyboard that really makes something like spooky sounding. And I have all of these synth tracks going through the same instance of Silver Spring. Let me remove the reverb and then show you this again. And turn it back on. Absolutely love that. Let's go ahead and jump to this instance of electro because I am actually using a reverb on this too. But I believe I am only using it on the snare. So I'm just going to jump to the part where the beat comes in. And you can see I have the snare going to its own channel here. And I'm using Tone Architect and Silver Spring together. The RA500, this is another one of those home stereo spring reverb units. I did another tutorial about how I use Silver Spring on drums, and I referenced this then, but this ripple category where it sounds kind of ping-pongy, delay-ish, but somehow like still sounding like a reverb at the same time. This is a good option for snare. It gives a lot of character. And so yeah, I just have it only on the snare here. And I guess the last thing that I haven't addressed yet is just that main keys part from that synth, which I'm also using that the same instance of Silver Spring that I used on the bass and the sound effects. Let's with it off. It just brings a lot of life and personality to anything you put it on. But when you're thinking spring reverb, you're probably not initially thinking synth or 808 or, you know, synth bass or piano. But I had a lot of fun dialing in these sounds, and I feel like it truly is the secret sauce for this track is the spring reverb. And I don't think that it would work nearly as well without it. So I hope this was helpful. I had a lot of fun making this track. We'll have more announcements on some of the other instruments in here soon, but thank you so much for watching.